Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting Tuesday, the 28th of April. In accordance with Regulation 14L of the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996, this meeting is being audio recorded and the recording will be published on the town's website within 14 days. Members of the public are cautioned against taking any action as a result of the council decision tonight until such time as the minutes of the meeting are published or have been advised in writing by the council's administration with regard to any particular decision. Elected members are asked to ensure their use of their microphones for the purpose of the audio recording. I declare the meeting open at 7:02 p.m. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the country that we meet on, the Whadjuk people, and also pay my respects to the traditional knowledge holders and owners, particularly associated with Lake Claremont. Item 2, record of attendance. Apologies, leave of absence. Nil. Apologies, Councillor Ryan Brown. Electronic attendance, nil. Disclosure of interests. Does anybody have any disclosure of interests? I'll declare a disclosure of interest. It's a direct financial interest as the company that I own is a supplier to a business of which Sam Kay is a shareholder, and subsequently I'll be leaving the room during that item. Item 4, previous response to previous public questions taken on notice, nil. Item 5, public question time. Welcoming Mr. John Burridge of Swanbourne. Please come to the microphone. Thanks, John.
You pressed something or was it already pressed? Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My questions really relate to what I loosely referred to and is now taken on in the area as the Berlin Wall, which is between my place and Side Piece. How can the council view the extension of a boundary fence which is butted up against the dividing fence without a setback as a screen and not part of the fence? Anyone in the Claremont district would be able to increase their fence height by simply calling it a screen. Is the council aware, and this is important, this is really important, is the council aware that the fence which Side Piece wishes to add to is partially on my land, and as such I cannot give approval? And just by way of explanation, when he first came to the place, he requested that he change the existing dividing fence. And I didn't want to be miserable. I said, yeah, no worries, go for it. And he said, look, on the end bit, where it goes sort of straight like a normal fence on a boundary line, he said, to keep it sort of neat and that, can we swing it around to the right and touch your brick wall at the end? And I thought, oh, what the hell? Yeah, no worries. But in doing so, he's crept into my land. Now, I'm okay with that at a normal fence height, but by putting this thing on top and assuming it's going to be built the same way as the rest of the Berlin Wall, it will in fact be encroaching on my property. So,
Mr. Burridge, would you mind if, just so we keep track of it, would you mind if the council answer question 1 and 2 before we get to 3? Question 3?
All right.
Is it okay?
I don't mind.
Yeah, great.
Whatever you want to do.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Sorry, thanks, Mr. Burridge. So your question 1, which was about how can council view the extension of a boundary fence which is butted up against the dividing fence without a setback as a screen and not part of a fence. So I'll answer that. question first. So the answer is that the proposed structure is a screening element associated with the approved development and is not considered a boundary fence. The report confirms there is already a dividing fence in place along the common boundary between 91 Shenton Road and 93 Shenton Road.
Yeah, normal height.
The town considers the structure to be properly characterised as a screening structure, in that i.e. it's a pergola with infill screening, and it forms part of the approved development, rather than it being a dividing fence for the purposes of the fencing local law. This is because an existing dividing fence already exists on the common property. It previously was fibro and has been replaced with Colorbond following a previous approval. But also the subject element, being the proposed screen, is attached to the main structure. It's not freestanding, it's not a replacement fence, and doesn't extend down to ground level. In those circumstances, it does not itself function as the barrier separating the adjoining lands.
Well, that's debatable. It looks like a valley fence to me.
And CEO, could you go on to answer question 2 at this point?
So, Mr. Barrett, question 2, which I'll just repeat, that question was, is the council aware that the fence which side piece wishes to add to is partly on your land, and as such, you cannot give approval?
Yep.
So the town's response is this planning assessment proceeds on the acceptance that the plans and material lodged with the application have been signed by the owner of the land, which depicts the proposed structure within 93 Shenton Road. The town does not determine cadastral boundaries. However, in this case, notes the proposed works relate to an existing structure which is set within the observed boundary alignment. On a civil basis, any dispute about the property line remains a separate matter between the landowners. It is the prerogative of landowners to investigate and resolve any boundary anomalies and may be subject to legal assistance. That's the answer to that.
So my final point, if the council approves this fence extension, can they please ensure that the normal fence is put back on the true boundary line? It's not a big ask.
Question 3.
That's it. Can you ensure that if you approve it, that the fence line is put back properly? Because it is a fence. I don't care what anyone says. It's not a valley screen. And don't forget, I'm residential too, and we have plans. And you're effectively adopting a industrial look or something at this. I'm residential commercial, and the way I see that screen is that it is unquestionably part of that fence. Those uprights that carry the screening are all flush up against the fence. There is no setback at all. And everything I ever read on fencing or anything like that always talks about setbacks and all that sort of thing. That thing's not a valley screen, it's a fence.
Mr. Burridge, we also have a question here 3, which is, what are the council's setback requirements for a screen fence?
Yeah.
CEO, would you mind answering that question that Mr. Burridge submitted?
Yes, Mr. Barrett. So I guess the response to that question is, again, the application is not assessed under the provisions applicable to boundary fences, as the structure is more appropriately characterised as a screening element within the subject site rather than a dividing fence. There's no setback requirement.
And I remember reading something on I think a heritage place that you were talking about in the previous, pretty recently, and one of the things you considered was airflow. I can assure you, if that thing goes in, it absolutely blocks me in.
Thank you,
It will
Mr.
touch
Burridge.
my rafters on my shelter out the back. I will get no air through that area whatsoever.
Thank you, Mr Burridge. As it's question time, I'll have to ask you to resume your seat. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Now calling Craig and Martha Kavanagh, or Craig, please come to the podium. Thank you.
Evening, everyone. Following the council decision on the 31st of March 2026 to amend the road verge policy EN302 and redefined adjacent frontage, which appears to exclude rear lot owners from participating in verge decisions affecting areas adjoining their property, can council advise whether it considers it appropriate for some residents to be excluded from the input into the use and the treatment of the verge, public verge they rely on, and why no public consultation was undertaken prior to the implementing of this change as promised in the meeting minutes in the 24th of September 2024. 5.
Thank you, Mr Kavanagh. We'll take them one question at a time. CEO.
Thanks, Mr Kavanagh. Response to that question, Council, during the consideration of the review of policy EN302 road verge, determined the definition of adjacent relating to the management of verges in the town. This definition defines the expectation for maintenance of the verge, as well as the right to landscape the verge where an application is made for this to occur. This is not a case of exclusion, but rather one of clarifying responsibilities and rights relating to verge management. As this policy refers to verges under the town's management throughout the town, there is no requirement to consult every individual property owner in this respect.
Question 2, please.
Can I ask a question on that question?
No, if you can please return to question 2 as stated.
Okay, not answered well. Question 2, it got changed. So it was, the original one I sent through was doubled up. Under clause 9.7, the town's local parking law 2016, a vehicle may not be left on a public place for more than 24 hours. However, I recently received an infringement for the alleged offence, which was subsequently withdrawn after we raised concerns with the town. Given this, can the town clarify whether the compliance powers may be used in connection with or influenced by private works on adjoining property such as verge treatment, and if so, what safeguards are in place to prevent inappropriate use of these powers?
Okay.
CEO.
So, Mr Governor, clause 7.9 of the Town of Claremont Parking Local Law addresses parking on verges. The questions of who can park on a verge that contains an approved verge treatment and a clear definition of who is the adjacent property owner to the verge, with in some situations an exclusive entitlement to park on the verge, will be subject to further considerations by the Council in coming months as either the local law or related policy are reviewed.
Mr Kavanagh, question 3, please.
Well, again, will the public be consulted on that, or will a decision just be made?
CEO, would you like to comment about public consultation?
Well, it'll be, without knowing how they'll change, it would no doubt depend on the extent of change and whether Council wish to proceed to consultation. The option is there for Council to
basically you
proceed
weaponise
to
the verge.
I'm trying to answer the question.
That's the existing answer at this point. Question 3, please.
Question 3, how does the town ensure equitable access to the verge space where one property owner is effectively allowed to control or exclude others through landscaping, and does the town consider it reasonable that a verge, being a public land, can be privatised in a practice by a single adjoining owner without consultation and consent from impacted neighbours?
Thank you, CEO.
Thanks, Mr Kavanagh. So it is assumed this question relates to the adoption of policy EN302 road verges.
Correct.
So generally properties which have a verge frontage enjoy the responsivity of maintaining that verge, as well as the right to landscape the verge following application approval. Unfortunately, what is commonly referred to as a Battleaxe block has per definition no street frontage and therefore no verge frontage other than the crossover. To clarify these responsibilities, Council defined the meaning of adjacent as it relates to policy EN 302. The policy does not entail privatisation, but rather allows adjoining owners to enhance the streetscape to the benefit of all residents.
Question 4, please.
Can the town explain why different versions of EN 302 policy appeared to exist with the same document control reference and which version was legally operative?
CEO.
No, thanks, Mr. Kavanagh. That's a good question. The policy published on the town's website in the folder titled Policy Manual is the correct version, being the modified policy adopted by Council last month. When investigating how an outdated version of the same policy would continue to exist, a simple internet search titled Verge Policy Claremont found an old version of the policy linked to a media story from several years ago. This has highlighted the need to clear old versions of documents from all parts of the town's website when they are updated. For clarity, where differing versions of a policy are found in this manner, the version contained in the policy manual folder takes precedence and is to be accepted as the proper version.
The version we did take directly off your website.
Question 5, please.
Given the town is now committed to a transparent and consultative process for local law reviews under item 13.1.1 in this particular meeting, will Council commit to reviewing EN 302 under a similar public consultation process? And will Council pause and reconsider the application of the current EN 302 policy where it is causing active disputes and inequitable outcomes pending proper community consultation?
CEO, please.
Thanks, Mr. Kavanagh. The response to that question, local law reviews are conducted in accordance with the structured and specific requirements set out in section 3.16 of the Local Government Act 1995. Reviews of policy are different. Policy reviews are presented to Council and appear in the public agenda. Members of the public are welcome to attend Council and provide input on any amendments proposed. Policy E302 was last reviewed and modified at the Ordinary Council meeting held 31st of March 2026. Policies establish principles and standards that support consistent administration rather than addressing individual grievances or mediating private disputes between neighbours.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanagh. Thank you for your questions. Okay, item 6, public statement time, nil. Item 7, applications for leave of absence, nil. Item 8, petitions, deputations, presentations, nil. Confirmation of minutes from the previous meeting, a mover and a seconder. Mover, Councillor Suwan, seconded, Deputy Mayor Kelly. Councillor Suwan. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Item 10, announcement of confidential matters for which the meeting may be closed to the public is nil. Item 11, business not dealt with from a previous meeting, nil. Reports of committees, item 12, nil. 13, reports of the CEO, 13.1.1, commencement of local law review 2026, a mover and a seconder. Moved. Councillor Swan, seconded. Councillor Main. Councillor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to just acknowledge the work on this report and to our team and Director of Corporate Services being relatively new. In a broader context, this report represents a comprehensive review of all our local law frameworks, and that in itself is a positive step. It is always good to look at these with fresh eyes, bring renewed focus and an opportunity to strengthen our processes. I'd also like to acknowledge that this report identified the status of the foreshore building line, Freshwater Bay and heights of buildings and the Freshwater Bay local laws. The fact that reviews were undertaken, the council did resolve to progress repeal. Public consultation was completed, but the processes have appeared to have stalled. So this was a great pickup. So now we have an opportunity to align this with our local planning scheme number 3, which is a good outcome as well. So, you know, with all these things, with laws and policies, it's a great opportunity to embed stronger governance oversight and better process tracking, and be confident that we have clear and transparent outcomes. So happy to support this, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Moon.
No, nothing further to add, thank you.
Anyone like to speak for the motion? Anyone like to speak against? I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Item 13.1.2, verge treatment, request for approval. A mover and a seconder. Moved. Councillor Cameron. Seconded. Councillor Goetze. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I see this as more of an administrative exercise. The council discussed this previously, and this is something that just needs to be done to end up with the result that we were after.
Councillor Goetze.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, this is a tidy-up technicality, but I'm actually going to speak against this officer recommendation, because I still think that there's always circumstances where common sense needs to prevail, and I think we should approve this retrospective application. So the was previously considered by council. However, in this case, the verge is very narrow and it contains a very large tree with bumpy raised roots. And I do sympathise with the applicants that it is a very difficult verge to grow grass on, or to have other applications. There's a lot of verges in Claremont now that have become more and more difficult to grow grass since we've had underground power, because the trees are getting bigger, and as they're no longer being pruned for the power lines, the verges are getting more shade and making it harder to grow. So in this case, the applicant tried mulch, but this was unsuitable because it scattered off the verge by the heavy foot traffic created by the commercial premises next door. So I think there is a place to occasionally approve, in special circumstances, the modern artificial turf. So the modern turf doesn't have all the environmental problems that the original artificial turf had. And so I think with these particular circumstances, a small awkward verge such as this should be allowed to have artificial turf. So although I realise that this recommendation is really just a technicality, I don't support the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Goetze. Anyone like to speak in favour? Anyone like to speak against? Councillor Cameron. Apologies.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I understand Councillor Goetze's position.
Sorry,
Sorry, did you
Councillor
want to-
Cameron.
Sorry, I just couldn't understand whether I was for or against, but I'll just speak.
Okay, you've made your
Look,
mind up.
I
Okay.
do agree with Councillor Goetze that this verge is very small. However, look, we have banned artificial turf in Claremont, and this request is in a very public area. A lot of people, as has been mentioned, are coming and going in this street, and it just may lead other residents to think they can do the same. When you see something and you think, oh, that's a good idea, just as Miss Evans' experience when they saw the artificial turf in Netherlands, they just went and did it. So for me, it's like we don't need more examples of it, so people who actually don't realise they need approval to do these sorts of things on their verge will just go and do it as well. It's only small, but for me, it's a matter of, it's a bad example for others to witness. It could be paved, a third could be paved, that would be a tiny amount, and that would not be a huge cost. So I really believe that we need to act on this one.
Anyone like to speak against? Anyone like to speak for? Speaking for, Councillor Franklin.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Artificial grass, as we discussed some time ago on a verge in Shenton Road, it discolours over time. It is unhygienic when dogs defecate on it and urinate on it. It's very hard to clean. You can't get food out of it. You can't get shards of glass out of it. And over time, it does become unsightly. There's a number of verges and that haven't been followed up, I think, and a few front gardens with artificial grass that really do look awful. And it doesn't stand the test of time unless it's chlorinated a couple of times a year, and it actually, and it also needs to be done. The work required to keep it looking good doesn't seem to happen, and it is an artificial surface with microplastics going into our groundwater, and there's so many other alternatives that plants will survive under shady trees. There's various creepers and slabs, and there are alternatives that do look better, and we have a policy for a reason. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone like to speak against? Anyone like to speak for? Otherwise, the floor, Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, with respect to the other councillors, this is actually not the place to be debating whether or not we should have artificial turf. We've had that debate. This is simply referring to the policy, Council Policy N302, road verges. Someone applied for retrospective approval, and we voted that retrospective approval not be given. This is just formalising that decision. I think we've already had the debate about whether we want to change the policy about artificial turf or not. This is simply formalising what the council has already debated and already agreed.
Thank you. I'll put it, all those in favour. Councillor Suwan, Councillor Franklin, Councillor Main, Councillor Fernandez, Deputy Mayor Kelly, Councillor Cameron and Mayor Telford, and against Councillor Gertzi. Thank you. Motion is carried. 13.1.3, appointment of the presiding and deputy of the presiding member of the Audit and Risk Improvement Committee. I have a mover and a seconder. Move Councillor Fernandez and seconded Councillor Cameron, two good men from the Audit Committee themselves. Councillor Fernandez.
Yeah, I think this is a really important motion because we definitely do need to have a deputy presiding officer, because our last Audit and Risk Committee meeting didn't go ahead because our presiding member was unable to make it. So it sort of...
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, look, I'm just confirming what has already been said. We've had some good people. They can't do the job anymore. We need to replace them, and this is just formalising that process.
Thank you. I'll put the amendment. Yes, there's an amendment, correct? Yes. Thank you. The amendment. Can't quite see it there, but the amendment there is that Council removes item 3 so that the recommendation reads: 1, notes the resignation of Ms Nanette Trask as presiding member of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee, and 2, appoints a candidate in attachment 1 as the presiding member of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee for a term expiring on the 16th of October 2027. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Gertzi seconded. Just as Councillor Fernandez and Councillor Cameron said, this is a matter of tidying up what is quite a complex piece of legislative drafting. So I think we're good, from my perspective, good to put it this way. Councillor Gertzi?
Yeah, nothing more to add. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Does anyone like to speak for or against the amendment? No? Okay. Anyone like to speak to the motion as amended? Okay, sorry, we'll vote on that, yeah. Question? No. Okay. We'll vote on the amendment. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Anyone like to speak for the motion as amended? Deputy Mayor Kelly.
I think it makes a lot of sense because we've got a member that doesn't want to act as the presiding member, so I think this is tidying it up and making it more operable.
Thank you. I'll put the motion as amended. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. Also, as I know myself, being the independent chair, I'd just like to take this opportunity to actually thank Nanette for her service. Nanette was also, as Deputy Mayor Kelly would also recall, a long-serving committee member on that committee before she stood in to be the independent chair when I resigned and took up the post of mayor. So thank you, CEO, and thank you to Nanette for her service. Moving on now, 13.1.4, list of payments, a mover and a seconder. Moved. I think that's Councillor Swan and Councillor Mayne. Councillor Swan? Councillor Mayne? Anyone else for or against? No, we'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. 13.1.5, monthly statement of financial activity for the period ended 31st of March 2026. A mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor Franklin, seconded Councillor Cameron. Councillor Franklin, Councillor Cameron. No. I'd just like to endorse that. I'd just like to commend this council. As you read the monthly statement of accounts, we appear to be progressing through this year well in terms of our month-to-month financial position and also our overall financial position as we come up to consider this year's budget. I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. No dissent. 13.2.1 I'll now hand to Deputy Mayor Kelly. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kelly. Just for the audio record, I'm now leaving the chamber.
Sorry about that. A bit unfortunate. Okay, thank you, councillors. Do I have a mover for item 13.2.1, lot 84, Shenton Road, Swanbourne, proposed extension of screening? Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Goetze, and a seconder? Councillor Mayne. Councillor Goetze.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. This application is for a modest extension to an existing approved screen to enclose a gap. We've been told in the report that the screen is wholly contained on the applicant's side of the boundary, and notwithstanding what we've heard tonight from the neighbour, the cadastral boundaries, a dispute about the cadastral boundaries is not part of the local government authority. So 2 objections were received to this application, with the main concerns being ventilation, enclosure, fire rating and amenity. All these concerns have been addressed in the report. Ventilation is maintained because there is a gap between the fence and the screen, and enclosure is not considered part of this application because there's no roof as part of the screen. With regards to the fire rating of the screen, I can completely understand the neighbour's concern, having the experience of a fire previously. But the fire ratings are regulated separately by the Building Act and the Construction Code and are not part of the planning consideration. However, the existing approved screen is non-combustible and complies with the Construction Code, meeting the flammability requirements. And as this application is for an extension of the same screen, it will be also required to meet the same flammability requirements. In terms of the amenity, I believe that the neighbours will not be worse off as a result of this small extension to the screen, and that the screen actually has the potential to improve the amenity for the neighbours in terms of noise mitigation. So I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Goetze. Councillor Mayne.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and I concur with Councillor Goetze. As mentioned, the screening, it was installed because there'd been concerns on both sides. There'd been concerns about noise from 3 neighbours, and Sidepiece had concerns because of cigarette smoke from the adjoining property, and it is a pretty good solution for both sides in that respect. The screen does have a gap between the perspex and the fence at the bottom to aid with ventilation. It can't be seen by the military shop side, but there is an actual gap between the perspex and the fence, and then the fence finishes a little bit higher up. And it is also clear, the perspex, so that means that the same light will be coming through because there is no shading. Look, the issue is complicated. Because, you know, in former times when owners added fences and pergolas, they measured things using a bit of string and a rough eye. And it seems that both the different bits and bobs of the side of this property have been changed in the deep, dark past. And it's the same with, I live in an 1888 house, and it's the same with when we got a new fence put in. We just found out that we were 7 inches out or something. It's just something that has happened in the past, but it has, in this case, happened in 2 different parts, in favour and not in favour for each side. And this screens can be lattice, but they also can be solid. So I agree with Councillor Goetze on this issue.
Thank you, Councillor Mayne. Any speakers against the recommendation? Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, look, I have a huge amount of sympathy for Mr Burridge, and appreciate technically, I'm being told this is a separate petition rather than an extension of the fence. But I'm sorry, if I was standing on Mr Burridge's side of the fence looking back, it would look like an extension of the fence to me. Currently, the existing petition does not extend past his first building line, so visually from the back you're not looking at this. But if we approve the extension, it will become a significant visual impact. And the gap between the wall, the current fence, and where the petition is, you know, it is a gap, however big, but the reality of that building and getting ventilation through, it's not going to be, in my opinion, it's not going to be brilliant. So I acknowledge technically, I think the council is probably right to approve this, but I have a huge amount of sympathy for Mr Burridge, and I can't support it.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Any speakers for the recommendation? I'll have a couple of comments as a speaker for. This is the difficulty with this application seems to be where the boundary actually is, and that's, I think, a very confusing dynamic in this discussion. Certainly, the structure is cantilevered off the building, so it's not actually attached to the fence, and the fence, as I understand it, is, depending on where the boundary is, the green fence is predominantly on the side piece land, and that has been attested to in terms of the signature on the application, as I understand it, and council doesn't get involved in the cadastral boundaries. That is a civil matter between property owners. So that is something that obviously needs to be resolved. And I do believe that it would mitigate against noise and to some extent, hopefully against odour. So I'm happy to support it on the basis that it is not an attachment to the fence. It is not an extension to the fence, and it cannot be construed in my mind as the fence. But there are issues in terms of boundaries, and I think that needs to be sorted out between the neighbours, and then we can get some, or they can get some clarity about ownership and exactly where the property boundary is. Are there any other speakers against the recommendation? I therefore ask the mover if they wish to close the debate. Councillor Goetze.
I have nothing more to add, thank you.
I therefore put the item to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Kelly, Councillor Swan, Councillor Goetze, Councillor Franklin, Councillor Mayne, 4. Those against, Councillor Fernandez and Councillor Cameron. I therefore declare the item carried. If I could just also, with the indulgence of the mover and the seconder, get a slight correction to the recommendation. It's actually listed in the recommendations in Shenton Road, Claremont, and it probably should be consistent with the title of the agenda item, which is Shenton Road, Swanbourne. So if we could, if the mover and the seconder are happy with that change. Thank you. Thank you, councillors.
Okay, item 13.2.2, Heritage Maintenance Grant, 15 Goldsmith Road, Claremont. A mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor Franklin, very quick there. Seconded Councillor Cameron. Councillor Franklin.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm always enthusiastic about heritage being maintained and improved, and I think they've done the work, they've got all the quotes, and I'm fully supportive of this application. Thank you.
Councillor Cameron. Anyone like to speak for? Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Just very quickly,
Yes.
Another example where a little bit of money goes a long way. This is something that I think is very reflective of the spirit of Councillor Balfe, and I think it's an example of where we can stimulate with a little bit of money to save heritage properties, and in many respects it doesn't mean that we have to be so judicious in terms of our ensuring that our heritage register is maintained, because when people spend money like this on their properties to preserve it, then it almost does away with the register. So I think it's fantastic. I think we get a big bang for our buck, but more importantly, it helps protect the heritage buildings within Claremont without having to use a big stick to encourage people to do it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Speaking for, Councillor Mayne.
Yes, that is something that I agree with completely. I'm completely passionate about heritage, and we've got great examples. And it's just so exciting every time there's a heritage grant application, because you get a little look at beautiful Ledlow. And it is the most sensational part of walking down our old streets, and it reminds us of it.
Thank you. Anyone like to speak against? Anyone like to speak for? No, I'll put it. All those in favour? Carried. It's carried, no dissent. 13.2.3, the item's been withdrawn from council agenda by the CEO. Item 14, announcements. Councillor Swan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I attended the very belated Christmas drinks that we held for council and admin executive at the tennis club. It was lovely having a change in doing it at the tennis club in an informal way, and doing it also in the 125th year was a lovely touch. So that was a wonderful evening. I attended the citizenship ceremony last week, which is always great. It was quite a big one for us, so great to see a lot more people becoming Australians, and had the great privilege to attend the Anzac Day service. It was a beautifully run event, so thank you to administration that helped with that, to the RSL and to the Mayor for his input. I know that he's very, very passionate about it. It was, very touching as always, and such an important date in our calendar. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gursey.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I also had the great privilege of attending the Anzac Day ceremony, and I got a lot of positive feedback from that. And particularly, there was particular interest around the 44th Battalion and the fact that that was a Claremont-based battalion. I also attended the right-of-way strategy public information session, and that was really interesting. There were probably about 60 people there. And generally speaking, most of the people I chatted to informally seemed to be in favour of the public strategy. So that was good, and a lot of the more detailed questions that they had were able to be answered by our CEO and David Vinicum. I also attended the citizenship ceremony, which is always such a great thing. And as often seems to happen with citizenship ceremonies in Claremont, you know, we have such a diverse range of people. And this time there was a woman from Israel, and there was also a woman from Iran. And I thought that was so interesting to have them both at the same ceremony. And what a lovely multicultural society we have in Claremont, and what a lovely, safe and happy society we have. I also attended the History in a Coffee Cup, which is always very interesting and always packed out. And I attended the councillors' function at the tennis club as well, and enjoyed the fact that that was a different format from previously. It was nice to be able to circulate more easily and chat more easily to different people. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gursey. Councillor Franklin.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I too attended the Claremont Tennis Christmas celebration, and that was great to meet a lot of our new staff and have an opportunity to chat with them in a less formal environment, and especially great to meet the new CEO who's coming in, who's very enthusiastic. I attended, I think we've had a couple of forums. We seem to have them every week. And I'd like to thank Tim and the staff for the work and the time. They've been long and a lot of work involved, and really appreciate, especially Tim who's pulled those together, and the time involved in allowing us to have feedback and input on lots of matters that are arising. And I was south, so missed the Claremont Anzac service, but the feedback from everybody I spoke to is really positive, and loved the way all the local service people were mentioned and our street signs, and the stories, our local stories connecting to the various war stories with the local flavour was much appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Mayne.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I went to the Western Metropolitan Roads Group meeting, the function at the tennis club, the forum on the tree retention, and fabulous Anzac ceremony. It's getting bigger every year. Amazing.
Thank you. Councillor Fernandez.
I went to the Anzac Day ceremony, the councillor function, the forums, which were really good, especially the waste management forum, which we had on. I also attended the Walker Central Zone meeting, and I was unfortunately unable to attend the citizenship ceremony.
Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. WMRC meeting, we're knocking our budget into shape, ready to send you your charges for the next financial year. Also, a couple of concept forums. I think the last one was 2.5 hours, if I remember rightly, and we only finished because we were all starving at the end of it, which I think are very useful, but we can sometimes dig a hole for ourselves and just keep going. But I think it's a pleasant change to have a much closer engagement with the administration, be able to talk freely and openly about matters before we're into the formal dialogue of the council meeting. So I think it's really paying dividends. Also, the citizenship ceremony, I think 20 was about the number. It's quite significant, and it's just fascinating. You see the smiles and the excitement on people's faces. It's really quite heartwarming. Central Metropolitan Zone with Councillor Fernandez, and we were in the luxury of the city of Perth. Councillor Fernandez's head was spinning at the opulence and conditions that the councillors work under. But more importantly, there was quite a bit of discussion about traffic speeds in local roads, and they were quoting Claremont as wanting to be encouraging and to engage with us about trying to make it almost a central zone-wide approach. So I think the work that we're doing is obviously being looked upon quite favourably by our neighbours. And then finally, the Anzac service on Saturday was absolutely fabulous. And the 44th Battalion, I think, really got a significant mention, and I found that address just stunning and quite educative, I've got to say. And I had people come up to me, and whilst I mentioned, I think in closing, that the RSL booth was there and you could make donations, people were coming up to me and asking where they could make donation to the 44th Battalion, which is stunning. And given that they're looking for a home for some sort of memorial, I think, having heard what I heard on Saturday, it's pretty obvious it needs to be around here somewhere, be it on the Karrakatta Barracks side or somewhere in one of our parks or whatever. But it's certainly, I think, quite appropriate for us to continue to work with them and talk to them. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, like the others, attended Christmas in April at the tennis club. Again, wonderful opportunity to meet the staff and our new CEO eventually. There was the tree retention policy workshop, the waste management workshop. Didn't get to the citizenship ceremony, which I was very sad about. It's one of my favourite events. We had the right-of-way information session, and I was in Melbourne for Anzac Day, and so I missed the new format of the Anzac Day, but I have only heard positive, very positive responses to that, so I congratulate all those involved in that, and that's me done.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. I want to firstly start by thanking Councillor Gertzi for attending the right-of-way strategy and facilitating and assisting the administration with that evening. And I'm glad and thrilled about the number of people that actually turned up, Councillor Gertzi, to that event. Well done to the administration for taking that step, and for David Vinicombe, obviously, to be there and an integral part of what David's legacy for this town. Obviously, thank Councillor Mayne for continuing her push for safer streets. And yet again, Davies Road, as Councillor Mayne knows, was in the news with a serious traffic accident on Davies Road, albeit down further down the other end. And Deputy Mayor Kelly, thank you for being the MC on Anzac Day. By all accounts, it was the Anzac Day was well received, certainly by John Burridge, who personally called me, David Thomas, who I obviously spoke to after the event. I attended the Scotch. I doubled up, attended Scotch first, where I laid a wreath on behalf of the town. And Scotch were very supportive. In fact, at the end of the Anzac Day ceremony there, they did a call out. And then obviously some of the Scotch boys and Dr. O'Connell came across and joined us after the Scotch event. So that was another very moving ceremony. It was just great on Anzac Day to see, all the members of our community, and as we stay together and move forward together, it's amazing when you look out into the crowd how many people you actually know. I mentioned Rod from the president of our tennis club. He was both at Scotch and here. Peter Boyland, Father Peter Boyland from Christchurch, did an amazing job to kick off proceedings. And then obviously John Burridge, my wife Holly said to me that our little girl Millie was quite shocked when John said the ode, at full tempo. Yeah, everyone kind of got a bit of a jump out of their seat, I think. But look, those gentlemen, David and John from the RSL, have been integral, working with Rachel and Christy in terms of the two staff putting on a tremendous day like that. And then when you came down here at 4 o'clock, it was all gone. Just want to mention Jack from the Post, who joins us tonight, as he always does. Jack, that was a tremendous piece of community service that you did in regard to that Poppy article in the lead up to Saturday's Anzac service with John Burridge in his shorts. And Jack, I'd have to say this for the record, Jack actually said, "Oh, don't worry, John, I won't get you in your shorts," as he kind of looked up, and he did. John's wife, Mark, is here tonight. He said, "Oh no, are you going to get dressed up for that photo?" And Jack assured him that he wouldn't take a photo with him in his shorts. But that article really set us up nicely. I mean, Councillor Franklin sent me a text saying that someone had already reacted to seeing the street sign before Jack's article actually came out on the Friday. That's why I sent a note back to Councillor Franklin saying, just hold on a second. But Jack, thank you for the work of the Post. That was a really touching piece of community service that you did. Really helped explain to people on Anzac Day, besides the presentation about it, set it up very nicely, so thank you. Moving on now, 15 elected members' motions of which previous notice has been given, nil. 16, new business of an urgent nature, nil. 17, confidential items for which the meeting may be closed to the public, nil. 18, future meetings of the council. Ordinary council meeting is scheduled for Tuesday the 26th of May at 7 p.m. and we declare this meeting closed at 8 p.m. Thank you.